Hello. So this guide focuses on explaining the TOEFL passage, looking at art. So, the section begins by pointing out what might sound pretty obvious, and that is that art communicates to us through our eyes. So, when looking at a painting, for example, we search for meaning, but the text of this TOEFL text focuses more on what it means to see or what it means to look. Right. So, from a scientific perspective, seeing is what the text describes as perception. So, perception is basically how we collect and understand sensory data. Now, to summarize this idea in a way that's easier to understand, our body collects information from the world and we understand them or recognize them through our senses. And we have 5 senses, which is touch, sight, smell, taste, and of course, how we hear things. So these are our 5 senses. So what it means to collect and understand sensory data means, for example, we use our eyes to look, and our eyes gathers light. And this information is sent to our brain. Then we give this meaning. That's how we understand the world around us, is through our senses, by touching things, smelling things, tasting things. It's like, for example, how you might understand a pizza. So a pizza smells like a pizza. You also see it, you taste it, you experience a pizza in many different ways. Although the idea of perceptions works in the same way for everyone, that doesn't necessarily mean we all see the same thing. Now, I'll come back to this again later. So, looking at nature, for example, with examples such as mountains or the ocean, this is one thing, but looking at art means looking at something that another person created. So, in some sense, they use their intelligence. Now, intelligence is more or less our knowledge and may include how we choose to apply it to certain situations. So, basically, the artist communicates using their intelligence to create something, and then we see it and use our intelligence to try and understand it or give it meaning. So, according to the author, the process of how art is made is quite important for us to understand the process. So we have how. The how varies between different techniques. For example, the choice of using paint instead of using clay, or carving something versus using a paintbrush. So to understand the process of making art will allow you as the observer or as a person looking at a painting or whatever form of art it is to understand it better. So, even knowing the place of art in history or time is just as important. This is because people are influenced or learn from the past, apply it to their present. The present form of art is then bequeathed or passed down onto somebody else. So, for example, it's a lot like how you go to school and you learn from somebody, and that person who's teaching you at some point learned something from somebody else. So it's kind of like passing down a style or a technique. So the example of Matisse is used to make the idea more clear. So maybe the piece of art that actually he made of Venus, the goddess of love, which anyone with a basic understanding of Venus can appreciate it, but he had one very specific statue in mind. This was a certain Greek statue of Venus. So understanding where the author drew their inspiration or motivation for the art will also deepen our understanding or of what the art is. So, finally, with regards to discussing some of the reasons that might be behind why an artist creates a piece of art, well, this can be any number of reasons. Van Gogh is used as an example in his painting The Starry Night, which might have been inspired by the belief that some people journeyed to a star after death. So maybe Van Gogh was fascinated by the stars in his own way of trying to understand what life is. So the reading finishes by explaining maybe the obvious, that a painting is something, understanding a painting is something that is different from person to person. The Starry Night will hold one meaning to Van Gogh, but a different meaning to you, for example. And this is because the artist had different experiences, thoughts, and emotions or feelings. So maybe this is what influences an artist to create something, or you as a viewer that observes it, that looks at it. So, right. Finally, I guess the important thing is to remember that the most important thing when looking at art or trying to understand art is that you can find your own meaning based on your own experiences, thoughts, and emotions. So, I hope this video helped. Thanks for listening.